Good evening and welcome to this meeting of Budget Council at the Guildhall. Please be seated. In the unlikely event of an emergency requiring us to evacuate the building, please make yourself aware of the emergency exits and follow the instructions of the security staff who are present this evening. May I remind everyone to behave respectfully and appropriately at this evening's meeting. I'd like us to have a productive debate, giving as many members as possible the opportunity to have their say. I'd also like to remind members that the guillotine will fall 3 hours after the start of the meeting. And we will also take 2 short breaks, approximately an hour apart, during the course of the meeting. Before we proceed with the formal business of the meeting, I'd like to welcome Councillor Anna Perrett to her first meeting on her return to the council. Councillor Perrett was elected as the member for Heworth Ward at a by-election held on the 15th of January. And I'm sure you'll join me in congratulating Anna on being elected and wish her well in her role. You clearly have already done that. Also, I'm aware, as many of you are, that this evening is York Knight's first game in the Super League, and we're not able to be there, so we have sent them our best wishes. I've sent a message to the owner and the chairman, giving him our best wishes, and hopefully it'll be a good start in Super League tonight for them against Hull KR. Whilst there's no impact on political balance, members will be fully updated on the committee appointments at agenda item number 11, appointments and changes to membership. Can I remind all members, please, to turn your mobile phones to silent and to mute any other electronic equipment for the duration of the council meeting. Thank you. Before we move on to the business of the meeting, can I remind everyone of our agreement at the July 2023 meeting of full council, when we passed a motion requiring the Lord Mayor to remind us about our net zero targets. With that in mind, you'll be aware that York's target for net zero is 2030. We need to continue to adapt and thrive despite extreme weather and encourage new skills and jobs to ensure just transition. However, this is just the start. With only 1,418 days to the 31st of December 2029, the challenge is immense. We must and shall continue to work together to address the climate emergency. Please, could I also remind you to speak clearly during the debate and always use your microphone. Remember to switch off your microphone after speaking. We will be taking 2 named votes. All right, please do not turn your microphone on until we call your name. What happens, there's only so many microphones that can be on in the channels, and it all goes pear-shaped if you all put your microphone on 5 minutes before we call your name. But we will give you plenty of opportunity. You should know when your name's being called for you to put your microphone on and then turn it off afterwards. Please ensure that the papers that you've got and any laptops don't obscure the microphone. And if you wish to speak, then please indicate by raising your hand or waving some papers. This is a really difficult venue for us to see everybody. We did ask about platform and about a raised platform here. You'll be pleased to know that Democratic Services declined to hire one at £500. That's what it would have cost for us to be able to see you clearly. So we're going to continue to operate without a platform, but it is very difficult for us. So please keep your hand up or your papers up until myself or one of my colleagues sees you and acknowledges that your hand is there. Please can we keep the meeting focused and to the point, and I will try to keep us on track if I feel that we are losing focus. So we have received one apology for absence, and that's Councillor Vassie. Do any members have any other apologies to report? No, can't see any, which is good. Item number 2, declarations of interest. Please could any members indicate whether they have any declarations of interest? Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just in light of the budget papers, I just wanted to, page 63 of the substantive papers includes references to the precept for police and fire services that has already been passed at the York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority, and page 10 of the amendments from the Conservative group proposes to reduce spending on CCTV by asking North Yorkshire Police to pay for it instead. As a result of that, I just wanted to draw people's attention to my substantive role as the Deputy Mayor for Policing, Fire and Crime for North Yorkshire Combined Authority.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. We've noted that. So item number 3 is the approval of minutes. Do I have the members' approval to sign the minutes of the extraordinary council meeting and the ordinary council meeting, both held on the 6th of November here? So yeah, just a nod, or yep, that's absolutely fine. It's almost easier to say if you don't want me to sign them, make yourself known, but that's fine, and we'll make sure that they get signed. Item number 4 is civic announcements. I'm going to make this as brief and succinct as I can. It was a very busy December with lots of engagements, and I was able to take a sigh of relief and a break from Christmas Day and Boxing Day onwards, but we were back into the swing of the mayoral engagements in January, and they're picking up a pace for my home run, should we say. One thing I would like to highlight to members, and you'll all be aware because we've sent you the details of the Lord Mayor's Commendation Scheme. There are so many. We have seen, as a civic party, we have seen so many ordinary people doing extraordinary things, groups that are making a huge difference to our city and to our community. But we are aware that there are those out there in our communities that we haven't seen and that we're not aware of. So to limit a Lord Mayor's commendation just to those individuals and groups that we've seen, I think would probably miss some of those that are worthy of nomination. So please, you have the information for nominations. The website was down for a couple of days, and so we've extended the deadline. So the closing date for nominations is the 2nd of March. Please do let as many people know about this scheme as possible. And thank you to 1 or 2 members have fed back to us some of the difficulties of trying to make nominations. And that's really helpful to us, because if we have any difficulties, we can get that fixed pretty quickly. But please do get behind the scheme. And we have had nominations in all categories now, so which is really good. And bear in mind that people can be nominated for more than one category. So that's it in terms of civic announcements. Item number 5 is public participation, and we have one registered speaker this evening, and I just would like to remind everybody of the rules relating to public participation. And so our speaker this evening, our public speaker this evening is Gwen Swinburne. Gwen, you need no reminding of either the rules or the time. So please, if you'd like to just present. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, tonight you are being asked to rely on statutory advice that does not address a very significant liability already disclosed in plain sight in our accounts. Members must have regard to the Chief Financial Officer's advice on both the robustness of the estimates and the adequacy of the reserves before setting the budget. It is Section 25 of the Local Government Act 2003. Members are aware we need to make multiple millions of savings, whilst the General Fund reserves stand at just 7.4 million, which is described as the minimum level. The first call on those reserves, as stated, will be any significant savings not achieved. The Section 25 wording remains substantively unchanged from last year. and it concludes that the minimum reserves are adequate. Yet the draft statement of accounts now discloses a contingent equal pay liability linked to continuing task and finish working practice. This is important. Concerningly, the Section 25 advice contains no reference to the contingent liability, no explanation of how that exposure has been factored into the robustness of the accounts and the reserves assessment. As an example, to make it clear, in Southampton, equal pay exposure arose from similar task and finish arrangements to ours in the waste services. Their LGA peer challenge identified liabilities as up to 52 million, requiring exceptional financial support from government. An increasing number of authorities across the UK are dealing with liabilities, each measured not in hundreds of thousands, not in millions, but in tens of millions. For us, looking at others, we could be facing a bill of 10 to 30 million. Yet you are completely in the dark, as are we. Members tonight are being asked to approve a budget that relies on minimum reserves, depends on significant savings delivery, and where the Section 25 advice does not set out how the disclosed contingent liability has been assessed within that judgment. I am deeply concerned that this matter has not been clearly set out before you anywhere. Without clear and substantive briefing and knowledge, you cannot properly exercise your statutory oversight responsibilities. Meanwhile, staff may assure themselves, it was mentioned in the corporate risk register and after a fashion, and in the 24/5
3 minutes, Gwen.
AGS. I've just finished. I just stumbled on
Brilliant.
it. Thank you.
There you go. Thank you, Gwen. Your comments have been noted and will be taken into account when that item is dealt with. That concludes the public participation session of this meeting. Item number 6 is petitions. We've not received any petitions at all, either in advance or on the night. And so we move to item number 7 on the agenda. And so I now invite the executive leader, Councillor Douglas, to move the executive recommendations in relation to the third monitor report on the 2025-2026 capital programme. The details are set out in the notes of the decisions at page 41 of the Budget Council papers. Thank you, Councillor Douglas.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Proposed, Lord Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And may I have a seconder for the recommendations?
Formally seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cobain. I now invite debate on the recommendations. Please indicate if you wish to speak. Okay. Councillor Douglas, you do have a right of reply, but as nobody has said anything, I doubt you.
Yeah, no need. Thank you.
We'll now take a vote on the recommendations. All those wishing to vote for the recommendations, please raise your hand and keep it raised until we indicate we've counted. Okay, all those wishing to vote against the recommendation, please raise your hands. I think. And then one abstention. Sorry, forgive me. Any abstentions? There's just one abstention.
44 in favour, 1 against.
So that's 44 in favour, 1 against, and 1 abstention. The recommendations are therefore carried. So that concludes the executive recommendations on that item. Moving swiftly on to item number 8, recommendations of the executive on the council's financial strategy 2026-27 to 2030-31, the capital budget 2026-27 to 2029-30, capital financing and investment strategy, and the Treasury management strategy statement and prudential indicators for 2026-2027 to 2030-31. We will now move to the main business of the meeting, which is to set the council's budget for the next financial year. May I remind members that all group leaders have up to 15 minutes of Budget Council to move a motion or an amendment in relation to the setting of the budget. Seconders and other speakers, including members exercising the right of reply, will each have 3 minutes. And I call on Councillor Douglas to move en bloc the recommendations as executive in relation to the capital and revenue budget proposals, as well as the Treasury Management Strategy Statement and Prudential Indicators. These are set out in the report beginning at page 43 of the Budget Council papers. The recommendations are on pages 45 and 47. Councillor Douglas.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor and Council, I propose to you for your approval the revenue and capital budgets as outlined at items number 1, 2, 3 and 4 under item number 8 for your consideration for the year 2026-27 that were considered by executive earlier this month. City of York Council has now been in existence as a unitary authority for 30 years, since 1996. There are many things that have changed and evolved in our proud city in that period, but there are also many that have remained constant for centuries. York is a dynamic city, always looking to the future, but firmly rooted in its heritage and culture. Its place as a welcoming and progressive home across the centuries to those facing persecution and intolerance, always striving to do our best to accept difference, support communities to thrive, and challenge inequity and injustice is something we all hold dear. We are intensely proud of our city. Today, we're all tasked with doing the best we can for our home and its citizens and setting the budget for the coming year. It's one of the most important, challenging and serious tasks we'll collectively carry out in our roles as councillors. This is particularly important in the current and ongoing financially challenging climate. York has not benefited from the Fair Funding Review. We must welcome the redistribution of scarce financial resources across our nation from more affluent areas into areas of most acute need. It has been desperately needed for many years. This is the right thing to do. But York, due to its relative affluence, has not benefited, and we will find ourselves in the challenging position of making the books balance for our council over the next few years. I have worked ceaselessly with executive colleagues, our 2 MPs and the Mayor of York and North Yorkshire to lobby government on this issue, putting York's case forward for improved revenue support grant, most recently meeting with Secretary of State Steve Reed and our MPs speaking in Parliament this week. This action will continue. It will never stop. We are also working proactively together to maximise York's opportunities for other forms of government and private sector investment into our fine city. This is an absolute must, capitalising on the amazing and productive partnership working that takes place every day in our city between our politicians, the council, health, education, transport, business groups and the voluntary sector. Working with government senior civil servants and ministers across Cabinet Office, Treasury, DEFRA, DBT, DFT and DFE. As a result, the Mayor and I have secured York's place within the Northern Powerhouse Rail deal, investment in improvements in our train station, and York as a key part of the Northern Growth Corridor, driving growth in opportunities and jobs for our residents. Just this week, we had visits from the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Human Rights and the Minister for Employment Rights and Consumer Protection, celebrating our city's work across children's services and the social enterprise sector. A number of other ministerial and civil servant visits across a number of departments are taking place over the coming months. York is a dynamic and ambitious city, driving forward into a strong future for all our residents, getting on with business and providing the jobs, homes and opportunities that we know our residents need, want and deserve. The Council's net revenue budget for 2026 is £187 million. This consists of £127 million from council tax, directly from the pockets of our residents, £23 million from retained business rates and £37 million from revenue support grant. That's central government funding. That is a lot of money. But we all know it doesn't go nearly as far as we need it to when caring for our young, our old, our roads, community and sports facilities, parks, libraries, and collecting waste every week. There is never enough to go round, and inflation, causing the rising cost of wages, materials, energy, and everything else that must be bought, only keeps going in one direction. All of the above leads to much agonising and consideration for us all on how we make ends meet and create a balanced and effective budget for the council. Setting a budget that is financially prudent, deliverable, and responds to the needs and priorities of our residents is an absolute unerring priority for both me and my Labour councillor colleagues. The people of York have very clearly told us they want to see a budget that protects and cares for the most vulnerable adults and children in our communities. They want to see an organisation that is efficient and focused, to see a budget that is balanced by raising revenue, only cutting services as a very last resort. In order to achieve this, the council must be an organisation that has the right staff with the right skills in the right places to drive lasting change in the way our services are delivered. The hugely challenging task of reducing the cost of delivery at the same time as improving the quality of those services for our residents. An organisation that is hollowed out, bereft of skills and expertise, simply cannot achieve this. Investing in the council's thousands of extremely hardworking and dedicated staff is therefore vital. I am proud to say that over the past few years, York's Children's Services have achieved the extremely challenging balancing act of radically improving services at the same time as reducing cost. And we now have a laser focus on carrying out a similar process of improvement across adult social care. We also know the places and areas people in our city call home are intensely important and of huge sources of pride for them. So we continue to put money into improving and renovating local parks for our children and doing our best to keep streets, pavements and places across our city clean and tidy through our neighbourhood caretakers team, and planting beautiful wildflowers around the city's walls. For more money every year goes into road repairs and improvements, subsidising important bus routes and gritting cycle routes. This will be the third year children at Westfield Primary School have benefited from free school lunches. Through this and the philanthropic citywide fundraising effort, York Hungry Minds, 67,000 additional free lunches and breakfasts have been received by York's primary school children, transforming attendance levels, eradicating lateness and turbo boosting educational outcomes in both phonics and multiplication. It's an amazing success story. We're investing more money in refurbing our council housing stock, creating homes that are comfortable to live in and really affordable to run with low energy bills. Adaptations to homes to allow people to stay in their homes longer as they grow older, investment in improving communal areas in our housing estates. I could go on. I will leave my fellow councillors to tell you more about the fantastic range of schemes and initiatives we're investing in this year. This is a responsible budget that balances financial grip, investing in our staff and important frontline services at the same time as delivering on the broader priorities of the people of York. I'd like to thank everyone across our group of councillors and the officers of the council who have worked so hard to achieve this. This has been an arduous task, and every day I'm in awe of how much our council achieves on a very tight budget. Thank you all for everything you do every day. I present this responsible budget to you for your approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. May I have a seconder for those recommendations?
Second, Lord Mayor, and reserve the right.
Thank you, Councillor Kilbane. We're now going to turn to the budget amendments, and so I invite Councillor Eyre to move the amendment by the Liberal Democrat Group as set out in the supplementary papers. Councillor Eyre, you have 15 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And I'd like to take the time during this speech, as I do have 15 minutes for once, to take the opportunity to thank officers in our finance team. Having been directly involved in this process for over 17 years, I've seen firsthand the frantic underwater activity that goes into making the budget swan appear to glide so serenely to this inevitable pantomime that is Budget Council. It's not just the time and effort that goes in from the officers, but undertaking such work at possibly the worst time, drafting spreadsheets and reports over Christmas and New Year. They continue to do so under ever more challenging circumstances and with often mixed support from elected members and very little, if any, support from national government. I'm also aware officers were keen to attend the Super League fixture this evening and were unable to as a result of Budget Council. I also have a friend who's one of the officials at the meeting, was offered free tickets, which I also had to turn down, so you get the pleasure of hearing this speech. I'd also like to take the time to welcome Councillor Perrott back to the chamber. It's always good, I say, to see councillors coming back after a period away, be that through choice or not through choice. There are many of us around here that have done both of those. Turning to the budget, this year's budget process has been poorly managed by an administration, even by their very own low bar. The decision to shift publication of the budget from December to January was a poor one under any circumstances, massively reducing transparency and restricting the ability of the public to engage with a budget that ultimately belongs to them, not elected members. The weakness of that decision was compounded by the timing of a by-election, which meant the details of this budget were not released until 18 days before this meeting. While you will no doubt point to the late publication of the government financial settlement, the reality is this had very little impact on the budget we look to amend here today. Had it been announced back in December, when it must have been ready, then I doubt any of it would have changed between then and now. That catastrophic settlement will have huge ramifications for the council that replaces your administration, but serves only as a fig leaf to disguise the third maximum rise in council tax since you promised a Labour government would freeze it. I doubt you'll apologise for those broken promises, but you should at least apologise to the public for not consulting and to members and officers outside the Labour group who have had to do the frenetic work to analyse, understand and amend a council budget in a matter of days. Now that you have a multi-year settlement, I state again, as I did at executive, you should this evening commit to start the consultation on how the future budgets will be set tomorrow. You have the information, but do you have the will to truly engage the public of the city? They say if you can't be good, be lucky. Well, that probably best describes this budget. A budget that denies the past, gambles on the future, and does little to address the long-term financial stability of the council. Faced with record overspends in revenue and record overspends in capital, you are placing a £5 million bet using one-off money to plug the gap in the year-on-year budget, all because you have lost control of spending. While we don't have time in 18 days to unpick the financial risk of this assumption, what we've sought to do is undo some of the worst injustices of this administration's financial illiteracy. The elephant in the budget is, of course, the £600,000 hatchet to our library service. Announced with fanfare and with warnings ignored, 3 years later, it has still delivered nothing. It is no wonder that internal audit assessed significant weaknesses in this and your other saving plans. It stands as a fitting summary of how this administration has been run. No methodology, no proposals, no appreciation of legal process, no assessment of risk, no consideration of deliverability, no thought of reputational risk, disrespecting of key partners. All we did have was bluff and bluster and the assertion that everyone should bend to the administration's whim. As Councillor Douglas was fond of saying, get on board or get out of the way. Fortunately for our libraries, and unfortunately for the administration, such words carry little legal or financial weight in practice. But as we've seen recently, this administration's legal and financial grip is questionable at best. Keir Starmer has managed over a dozen U-turns in 18 months. Surely you can manage this one obvious one. Or perhaps, given her historically close relationship to Councillor Stewart, this leader is also not returning. If you agree this amendment, it will bring this charade to a close. Otherwise, we shall see a third year of raids across the council to fund £1 million overspends in the community's portfolio. It's time to draw a line under this mistake once and for all. We have generously provided you a detailed and costed alternative that values our libraries and what they bring to our communities. Even better than that, we have built this in as a recurring investment that provides a long-term sustainable future. Of course, we should have a mature conversation about whether there can be income-generating opportunities under the current model, but this needs to be done with our partners, not to them. Elsewhere, we look to invest back in those street-level services that people can see as a transparent justification for their council tax increases for the last 3 years. We are suggesting making savings in communications, yes. This is because no amount of money spent on social media, on new videos, on promotional material will ever convince the public what they can see with their own eyes. 3 years of austerity in our frontline services have left our public realm tired and shabby. Our roads and footpaths crumbling, street signs damaged, missing or unreadable behind a forest of weeds, rows with faded or invisible marking. People see this every day on their way to work, to school, to the shops. Putting money back into our frontline staff on a permanent recurring basis is more important than one-off gimmicks to try and fool the public you are delivering promises. At least you've accepted that investing in social media and spin isn't the success you hoped, as we see one-off growth for 4 citywide publications in the year before an election. Correlation does not, of course, imply causality, and it may just be that after 3 years, you'll finally listen to Councillor Taylor, who actually wanted that for the right reasons. But frankly, it's too little, too late. And I suspect those 4 leaflets, like this administration, will be headed straight to the bin. Our amendment would invest in communities by working with them with devolved highway budgets and local funds so that they can have a say how it's spent in a meaningful way. We acknowledged in 2019 that the current way of doing things simply did not deliver the vital improvements our local roads, footpaths and cycle paths require. The £1 million Ward Highway project was genuinely transformational. Done right, it delivers meaningful change in communities and is one of the key drivers of active travel. People need to feel safe to walk or to wheel before they leave their cars at home. Those first steps start at the edge of their property. If we don't get that right, the battle is already lost. Well-maintained, well-lit local roads and footpaths are vital for social and economic well-being, and the current system is failing residents. Local ward schemes versus over-centralised bureaucracy will always be a point of difference between us. I have enjoyed my meetings with Councillor Pavlovic and Councillor Stewart, and thanks go to the huge efforts of officers such as Maura who have put into the idea of the citywide pot. The reality is the concept is not working. Small funding solutions work well in small communities, and it's generally interesting to see the schemes as they're approved month by month. That's where the value is delivered. The notion that the citywide pot would deliver the benefits of larger contracts and bulk buy efficiencies hasn't worked out. It's much better to let wards have their funding back. At a ward level, the prioritisation is clear. There is greater agility to adapt to local circumstances so that we can achieve the outcomes that make the local difference and improve democracy. There are occasional hiccups, such as my ward, where the centre steps in to block spending, but local flexibility allows us to react quickly and to pivot. That is the beauty of ward funding and why we support increasing it and releasing some of the shackles a centre knows best approach imposes. There is so much more in the amendment, and my colleagues will go into far more detail than I were able to in the speech. This time last year, I said this would be your final budget, if you made it this far. Well, you did, just about by the skin of your teeth. This amendment shows the very clear dividing lines between the priorities of my group and of residents and those of the administration. Supporting it tonight would go some way to bridging the disconnect between this administration and the residents of York, and may go some way to help some Labour councillors hold their seats. Should you not, there will be one last budget in February 2027, but not one that will be fully implemented after Labour have been ousted in May. The summer 2027 true budget will represent one of the first acts of the new Lib Dem administration, one that will deliver rather than deny promises, and one that will start to unpick the financial mess Labour, nationally, regionally and locally, have left this city in.
Thank you, Councillor. May I have a seconder for the amendment, please?
Second, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. You do have 3 minutes, Councillor Widdowson, if you wish to use them.
Thank you. Yes, please. I'm pleased to second this budget amendment. This is an amendment about listening to residents and responding to the pressures they're actually facing. I want to highlight 3 specific proposals in the amendment that do exactly that. Firstly, community skips. We're proposing £52,000 to trial community skips in areas most affected by fly tipping. Under this Labour administration, we've seen the cost of bulky waste collections pushed up astronomically, recycling centre opening times cut, and the introduction of the green bin tax. For many residents, particularly those without cars, older residents or people on low incomes, getting rid of waste has become much more difficult. When legal routes are blocked off, fly tipping goes up. Community skips are a targeted response. Put them in the places that are worst affected, give people a legal, accessible way to dispose of waste, and you reduce fly tipping, clean up neighbourhoods and save money in the long run. Secondly, support for families struggling with food costs. The Labour government has taken £406,000 out of York's Crisis and Resilience Fund, compared to what we previously received through the Household Support Fund. That is a cut with real consequences for families who are already stretched to breaking point. Our amendment proposes to put £250,000 back into support for families and food bills during the school holidays. The Labour government were elected in part to try and get bills down. Instead, we've had to sit through the same political psychodrama as we saw under the Tories, all whilst bills continue to rise. This funding would help alleviate child poverty by supporting families over the summer holidays with supermarket vouchers at precisely the time when free school meals are no longer available and household costs are at their highest. Finally, fairness around the green bin tax. We are proposing £100,000 to extend support linked to the green bin tax, particularly for the tens of thousands of households who used to have green waste collections and now don't as a direct result of this policy. Residents being charged more for a reduced service through no fault of their own. This funding is about easing that transition and making sure the burden doesn't fall hardest on those least able to absorb it. Taken together, Liberal Democrats are putting forward an alternative budget that reflects what residents tell us they want every single day. Cleaner streets, real help with the cost of living, and proper investment in our public services. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Widdowson. So, members, I now invite debate on the amendment. If you can raise your hand, we will acknowledge that we've seen it. I will then be given a list of those of you that have raised your hand, and hopefully it'll all be plain sailing.
Councillor Fenton doing this.
Okay, so the results are in, and So in no particular order as the hands went up. So I'm going to invite Councillor Webb, then Councillors Fenton, Stewart, Steels, Walsham, Mason, and Orrell. But I will call you obviously when it's your turn. Councillor Webb.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Well, this amendment is neither good nor lucky. I think we should discuss what has become a tradition in Budget Council and what will indeed become Councillor Ayres' legacy once he is long gone. And that is absolutely a positive thing, actually, where we point out how much of the budget the opposition agrees with the administration's budget. Maths courtesy of Councillor Rose, because I didn't trust myself to do it, to be honest. So I looked straight away at the, Councillor Rose looked straight away at the capital programme and informs me that they agree with 99.48% of the capital programme. So well done, you made it past 0.5% of disagreement. Then, if we move to the revenue total, he had to add this up manually, so I hope you give him a moment later on. The agreement there is 99.48%. Well done. What a change. Oh, sorry, I got that wrong. 99.53%, so just less than 0.5%. What a shame. This amendment is very much about political choices. There are absolute political different choices here. You're Liberal Democrats trying to hold your group together and make a leaflet, while Labour's unamended budget is putting residents first. If we look at the 300k one-off reduction in parking fees, I mean, that won't actually be even enough to freeze parking fees at the current prices. So even though it's the choice you've made, it's not actually been thought through and doesn't really do what it intends to do. So that's a bit of a dodgy one to start with. Green waste. Last year, you suggested it was wrong, but you failed to do anything about it. And you've pretty much done the same again, really, this year. So whilst it's a political choice to moan about it, you don't actually know what to do. Hopefully, you've finally accepted that residents want us to be a revenue-generating city, but clearly your group can't come to terms with this. Hence, you've got a sort of a weird wishy-washy situation where you agree with charging, or else you'd have stopped it in your budget. But you need to placate some of your members by introducing a one-off payment that's tokenistic and could genuinely lead to some confusion amongst the public. Redistribution of the citywide ward committee budget into individual ward allocations. I really do take umbrage with this one. I think this moves money away from vulnerable people. It is a choice that you are making to remove that money from vulnerable people. And it's not one that I wish to support, really, because of my belief that our job here tonight, all of us here tonight, is to support hardworking people who need that support in our city. And I'm not sure that that choice that you have made is something that I agree with. So I won't be supporting this amendment, you'll be surprised. It's cynical, it's leaflet fodder policy statements that haven't been thought through and would lead to instability, further cuts and confusion amongst the public, and remove the revenue that residents have been clear they want us to raise. But luckily, I hope we can all get on board together and get this amendment out of the way. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Webb.
3.5.
Yeah. So Councillor Webb has set the bar at 3.5 minutes. Okay, I will try to allow you to have your 3.5 minutes, but rather than giving you the 30-second interval, just try and be as brief as you can. Councillor Webb, I gave you everything that I could. Councillor Fenton.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. One city for all. That's the mission statement adopted by this administration. But does it stand up to scrutiny? Let's consider the older people and the disabled people who don't have a car and can't get to their nearest bus stop. Many of them relied on the Dial and Ride community transport service to have some semblance of independence. Previous administrations, and indeed the early days of this administration, recognised the importance of the service by supporting it with a revenue grant. Dial and Ride folded in December 2023, which is something I know we all regret deeply. So what happened? Members from the three main parties were determined to take action. So a task and finish group was established in February 2024 to try and work together to reinstate this lifeline service. Recommendations were agreed in June 2024, which gave a very clear signal that a replacement service was needed. So what happened next? Not much. This time last year, there was some fresh optimism. £20,000 was committed for a study to look at possible alternatives to the Dial and Ride service that we'd lost. So not unreasonably, we would now be expecting to see the outcomes of that work, potentially recommendations to consider. But that study hasn't reported back, and I do wonder whether the work has started in any meaningful way. What has happened is that the council sold the unreliable Dial and Ride minibuses, and that generated £100,000. Has that money been ring-fenced to support the establishment of a replacement service? Not as far as I'm aware, but I'm happy to be corrected. So the experience of the past 2 years really does suggest that Dial and Ride is not a priority for this administration. Your actions or inaction speak far more eloquently than your words. So it falls to the Liberal Democrat group once again to stand up for residents who benefited from or could benefit from a dial and ride service. If colleagues believe that one city for all means that older and disabled people should be supported to lead fulfilled and independent lives, then you'll support this amendment, but it's up to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fenton. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Unfortunately, we won't support this amendment. And it's a shame that Councillor Healy's back from his toilet break, because it's always difficult when Councillor Eyre talks about Thatcher when Councillor Healy is in my eye shot. There is, of course, nobody in the chamber more Thatcherite than Councillor Healy. I would run him a close second, possibly. And as for turning, when Councillor Healy goes through this strange midlife crisis that he's going through and is sat next to, I don't think it's particularly fair to Councillor Healy. Just to answer Councillor Webb's point quickly about agreeing with the budget or not agreeing with the budget because of what's been amended, you don't have to endorse something just because you haven't amended it all. Look, for example, at the Parliamentary Labour Party, where every single MP wants to amend their leader, but nobody has yet gone on the record as doing that. We won't support the amendment for 4 reasons. First of all, a very practical point. We fully expect our 2 amendments to go through and are aware there's a logistical difficulty if we have our amendments clashing with the Lib Dem amendments, and it would just pointlessly prolong proceedings. Secondly, we think the amendment is quite short-termist in its outlook. It doesn't have the maturity of, for example, our amendments in the approach to key financial matters. Thirdly, it's not gone as far as it should. But finally, and probably most importantly, it has nothing whatsoever that's tangible about green bins. And as Councillor Webber said, the Lib Dems are joining Labour as the party of the green bin tax. Councillor Eyre quite rightly said it's an additional tax. Councillor Widdowson said this was fairness around the green bin tax. Well, the Conservative position is that fairness around the green bin tax is when council taxpayers pay their council tax, they get green bins emptied as part of that. The Labour group favour an additional charge. The Lib Dem group favour an additional charge, and that's where we're different. So unfortunately, we will not be able to support the Lib Dem amendment, try as they have in many areas.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. Councillor Steels-Walsham, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I want to speak on the proposal to spend 250,000 from the public health grant to support residents with healthy food and weight management. So Public Health last month presented a comprehensive evidence-based approach to healthy weight at the Health and Wellbeing Board. We already have our clear long-term plan aligned with our health and wellbeing strategy, and we are working systematically towards the outcomes we've collectively agreed, which of course includes the Liberal Democrat councillors. The amendment misunderstands both the purpose and the constraints of the public health grant. This is ring-fenced funding under the Health and Care Act 2012, and every pound that's spent on activity must clearly demonstrate improvements in public health. It's not a flexible pot for one-off initiatives that sit outside our agreed programme. The Liberal Democrats propose using the Public Health Reserve for 2 one-off allocations in 2026 and 27, and the impact of these allocations would be to weaken the financial resilience of the public health service. A healthy reserve is a luxury. It's not a luxury. It is a core part of responsible public health management. Reserves protect us against unplanned events, outbreaks, new statutory duties, sudden cost pressures, and they allow us to maintain stability across multiple years. The current reserve has built up gradually since COVID, and for a service that can face sudden high impact pressures, it's prudent and necessary at that level. Using almost half in one go may be technically possible, but it's irresponsible. If anything significant happens around public health in York, we would be far more likely to have to call on the council's ordinary revenue budget to bail us out. And that is a potential and very real consequence of depleting the public health reserve in an unplanned way. The amendment suggests the proposal could simply sit under the obesity category of the grant conditions, but the categories are not elastic. They are not designed to justify any desirable initiative that happens to mention food or weight. Public Health have set out the strategic long-term evidence-based approach on healthy weight. This proposal has appeared out of nowhere and based on previous budget proposals and probably will disappear just as quickly. This isn't the sort of strategic approach that delivers real change and improved outcomes for residents. Effective public health is built on sustained targeted interventions, not large one-off injections that destabilise the wider system and undermine our ability to respond to future pressures. We already have a clear strategic long-term approach to healthy weight. We know the outcomes we are working towards, and we already have a programme that Public Health, the Health and Wellbeing Board and our partners are committed to delivering. So while I welcome the intention behind this, I can't support the amendment. It doesn't represent the most effective use of the public health grant, and it weakens our ability to protect the health of York's residents where it matters most.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart-Walsham. Councillor Mason. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. At last year's Budget Council, the Lib Dem group proposed an amendment which sought to mitigate the impacts of significant changes to parking charges ahead of the promised review of city centre parking provision. The administration didn't listen and the amendment was voted down. So what's happened since? There's still no sign of the promised review of city centre parking provision, just more ad hoc decisions. There's been a significant drop in footfall in local shopping areas such as Micklegate, and there's been a partial reversal of some of the huge price increases following an unsustainable backlash from local traders, and the administration has been forced to undertake a statutory review of its approach to parking charges. There's also been an increase in parking income, further highlighting this administration's increasing dependency on this source of revenue. This amendment provides the administration with an opportunity to make some further targeted interventions to support hard-pressed businesses. If you won't listen to us, please listen to the local businesses. They understand and support the need for tackling congestion and to create space for walking, wheeling and cycling, but they want to help inform decisions so that they remain vibrant and retail offer and hospitality for people can be accessed. The administration's current approach just risks pushing people out of town to shopping parks. That won't help reduce car miles and it won't support the city centre economy. Please also listen to residents in York's villages and outlying communities. The extended operating hours of the park and ride sites is welcomed, but there's still the occasion where people do need to drive into the city centre, and we don't want to price our residents out of their own city. Please support the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Orrell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm speaking in support of our proposal to create a £1 million Ward Highways Fund. First, I want to thank our highways officers for all they're doing. It must be very frustrating for them that they can't do much more because of a lack of resources. Our amendment would not only provide an extra £1 million for roads across the city, devolving this money would save money for central budgets. Some examples. A few years ago, Church Lane in Huntington needed regular pothole repairs. We were told it was number 732 on the list of schemes for resurfacing. No chance then, we'd still be waiting. Ward funding resurfacing was carried out. No pothole repairs have been needed since, saving our council many thousands of pounds. And as the road is used by pedestrians and cyclists from Huntington and New Ayswick, a safe route for our community. Recently, following our reports, Highthorne Road had some patching work needing a road closure. Yes, this section of the road is now better, but just beyond the repair work, the road is crumbling with more potholes that will need further work soon and another costly road closure. A ward scheme would have saved this extra spending. Local people have raised concerns about speeding on Willowbank and Strensall Road. Devolved money could quickly introduce measures, but centralised control means that has to be a process that takes time and costs more. And then there's New Lane. a cause célèbre in Huntington and beyond. Not only do local people despair of its condition, how many City and Knight supporters or Hull KR visitors tonight will damage their cars? In relation to tonight's match, I hope the executive member has made arrangements to protect local people from indiscriminate parking that I asked for at our last meeting. We keep asking, but if something is not done soon, there could be a tragedy when an ambulance or a fire engine can't get through to our streets. We've complained to Barrett's about the damage to their development is doing on New Lane. They now say they'll pay for part of the New Lane to be resurfaced. Will our council resurface the rest? Failure to do this will result in just ridicule across Huntington for your administration. In recent weeks, we've reported potholes at the junction of Broom Close, Bowley Close, Abbotsgate, North Lane, Brockfield Shops, Lee Way, Green Acres, Hawthorne Terrace, Brockfield Road, Willowbank, Yeasley Grove, Wembley Grove, Haxby Road, Keswick Way, and others. Lord Mayor, the logic of our call for development funding is irrefutable, but I fear your central control will lead to its rejection. Just a final thought for Councillor Webb, Lord Mayor. I think it's time Labour found a different argument about this 99%. I first heard it 35 years ago from a Labour councillor. We know Labour is based in the past, but I would have thought you moved on a bit back from since then.
Thank you, Councillor Orrell. So, members, I have three more, and then we're not going to take any more for this debate. So, in order, Councillor Waters, Councillor Nelson, and then Councillor Healy will finish it off. Councillor Waters, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's quite gratifying to realise that sometimes when you speak, people actually take notice of what you're saying. So I'd just like to thank the Lib Dem leader for finally realising and admitting that this whole process is a pantomime and a charade. He might also like to use the phrase that I use most years. It's like watching bald men fight over a comb. All we're doing is sat here writing political leaflets for the Lib Dems or soon to be the Conservatives. There's only going to be one budget passed, and that's that of the ruling group. There's only going to be one increase, and that's the maximum. And it doesn't matter which colour rosette the ruling group has on, it'll be the maximum every year. None of this showboating makes one iota of difference. Why? Because there's no money coming from government. Why isn't there any money coming from government? We'll come to that later, because if I mention that now, I'll probably get thrown out again. Thank you, Lord.
Thank you, Councillor Walters. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I don't have a prepared speech. I wasn't going to speak on this item, but I feel like there's just something that needs addressing here, which is that if the Lib Dems think that the most important thing to the majority of York residents is how often their verges are cut and how clean their streets are, I feel like you might be asking the wrong questions. And that's not to say that York residents don't care about those things, but if I'm truly honest, I've seen the surveys drop through my door asking what the worst thing in my area is. Is it antisocial behaviour, or is it dirt on the streets? And it feels like that's not the right questions, particularly for Westfield, where I represent. And to be honest, it's a strong reason why I stood to be a councillor. Because if you ask our residents what the most significant issues are, it is things like feeding their children, where things like the Labour government scrapping of the two-child benefit cap or free school meals in their primary school, which you said were impossible and also you wouldn't have even tried to do, those are the things that make a difference to our residents. Things like housing repairs, which we've invested in, things like the turnaround times of our council housing, those are the things that get people into the places they need to be. Things like £250,000 of new play equipment to replace old mouldering parks, that is the stuff that matters the most to our residents. And if you ask the residents where I live, where having the cleanest streets is on their list of priorities, I am sure they would tell you it's at the bottom of all of those. But if your solution to that even so, is to give people skips that are full in 10 seconds, or I believe it's 10 minutes, the street that I live on. If you think that spending council budget regularly on a massive investment in skips that people fill up in 5 minutes' time and then it's gone is a good spending of our council tax, I just think you're looking in the wrong places. What you should be doing is focusing your amendment on how can we improve conditions for our most vulnerable residents. And I don't think having a council skip at the end of their street is ever going to be the top of their list of priorities. But things like community caretakers, oh, they make a really big difference because they are working with communities and they're following the priorities of our communities and what they need doing. And I just feel like we need to address this. Having your verges cut might be something that Lib Dems really like talking about, but it is not the priority of our residents in York. They care about equality, they care about deprivation, and they care about need. And we are doing everything we can with the incredibly limited resources we have to focus money in those areas instead of gimmicks like skips at the end of your street or a few extra discounts on green bins. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, Councillor Healy, you promised me you'd be brief so you can bring this to a close.
Thank you, Lord
Councillor
Mayor.
Healy.
I will be incredibly brief. Just wanted to pick up on the excellent work of Councillor Rose, suitably nerdy. I would just like to say the last opposition amendment budget in 23 included a massive 5 line items adjustments to the revenue budget, totaling a huge £190,000, which then, if on a budget of 141.624 million, gives you 0.13% change. So in your last year of opposition, you agreed more with the ruling group than we do today. That was stunningly missed. So 99.87% of the budget you were in agreement with. Anyone would think that you couldn't put together a decent budget amendment. Thank you, Lord Mayor. I hope that was brief.
Thank you, Councillor Healy. Councillor Douglas, would you like the right to reply?
I think we've heard it all, Lord Mayor, so let's move to the vote.
Thank you. So I will now take a vote on the amendment. So all those wishing to vote for the amendment, please raise your hand and keep it raised until we acknowledge that we've counted your vote. So all those who wish to vote for the amendment, please raise your hand. And all those wishing to vote against the amendment, please raise your hand. And all those wishing to abstain, please show your hand. Okay, so the results are 18 for the amendment, 24 against the amendment, and 4 abstentions. The amendment is therefore lost. I know you are chomping at the bit in anticipation for the Conservative amendment. However, I'm going to just delay that amendment whilst we take a 10-minute break. If I can have you back in your seats ready to begin again at 1:45. Thank you very much. On to the Conservative amendment, and I now invite Councillor Stewart to move the first of two Conservative group amendments as set out in the supplementary papers. Councillor Stewart, you have 15 minutes.
5-0 or 1-5, Lord Mayor?
15, Councillor
15, 1-5.
Stewart.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Well, here we go again. Once again, the highest possible council tax increase, which you may think that's Labour, but ultimately in 2023, the Starmerites in York stood on the clear pledge of freezing council tax. They got in with leaflets saying they'd freeze council tax, didn't they, Councillor Whitcroft, in these marginal wards? And then in the build-up to the 24 election, where Starmer was to get in nationally, Labour were going to freeze council tax. It couldn't have been any clearer. Instead, they've torn up the promises to the people, and we see this absolutely outrageous 5% council tax rise. It's a rotten government, we know that. It's covered in sleaze in all sorts of ways. And there are two, well, yes, Councillor Nelson, I wasn't going to expand on it, but I will. The fact that one of your ministers went due to fraud is not a great thing. The fact that another went due to links with the corrupt Bangladesh government is not particularly great. The fact that your former deputy leader went due to tax evasion, they would count as sleaze. Not to mention Lord Ali buying virtually everything clothing-wise for every cabinet minister that was going. We know there are two positions on Keir Starmer amongst Labour MPs. Get rid of him after Gorton and Denton, or get rid of him after May. Nobody believes him, but we suffer under him. Tonight, there was the night where the Starmerites come out in force. The red clothing is a joy to see. Lacking last year, but this year it's back. A few have gone for slightly different sort of maroony, purpley shades. I think Councillor Taylor sort of mixed messages there with his. But fundamentally, the diehards are out with their red clothing once again. We know it's tough, though. We know that Labour is having to drag everybody in. It's only the loyal, true that are sticking with Starmer at these toughest of times. How was your day at Chequers, Councillor Myers, in the recent week? Was it all right? It was good. Spot on. Excellent. He can count on your support. Lord Mayor, the fact is we have a Labour council. We have Labour MPs in York. We have a Labour government. We have Labour mayors. What do we have? We have the worst funding settlement for York since the Lib Dems were in government. Since those dark days when the Lib Dems were in power in Westminster. So, Councillor Baxter, the point is, it was a coalition after the tough times of Labour. The Conservatives came together with the Lib Dems, reluctantly and cautiously, but when the Lib Dems were gone from government, we saw what the Conservatives believed in, and when free from the shackles of the Lib Dems and their appalling funding settlements, the Conservatives could actually deliver for people. We've had a manifesto in York.
Councillor Stewart, as entertaining as you are, you've had 3.5 minutes, and we aren't really on.
Well, we are. Look, thank you, Lord Mayor. Yeah, indeed.
Let's move to the amendment.
Just the final point was about the manifesto of Labour in York, which obviously promised free school meals for every single primary child in the York, and we're now told it's an amazing success story. The fact that we've got one school has done it for 3 years. So moving to our amendment, I'd like to thank Debbie and Patrick, the officers who worked so ably with us on the amendment, for their positive. Wish we'd thought of that type of mentality as they went through our various suggestions. Our amendment centres around no additional green bin charge. We've made clear that dividing line. We do not believe there should be an additional tax for disposing of rubbish. Unlike the Greens, unlike the Lib Dems, can only go so far, I do apologise. The Labour group, and we wait to see what Councillor Waters thinks, depending on whether he votes for amendments or not. £50 additional charge is a lot of money. It may not be to a trade union baron or to Lord Mandelson, as was, but to the good people of Coplandthorpe, it is a lot of money. That could get 2 meals out at Sizzling Plate. It could get 2 takeaways at the recently rebranded Spice Hub. It could get 13 packs of fudge made by Lilybet's Fudge within a garage in Coplandthorpe. Could do all these sorts of things. It could buy some clothing at Winston's, one of York's leading clothing shops. Were it not for the fact that whilst many businesses in York are suffering due to national insurance, business rates, parking costs and consumers feeling the pinch, the owner of Winston's has shut down the business because the business was doing really well and it's the right thing for the business. However, moving on, we will make the first green bin with no additional charge. Residents will welcome that. We will increase highways funding. We will ensure the park fund is split between York Central and York Outer, so it can't just go into certain marginal, city centre wards. We will also put the community caretakers funding in the direct hands of residents and community organisations, rather than CYC staff gracing the area once every few months with what they should be doing anyway. And finally, this is obviously just going through the briefest highlights of our amendment, not everything in detail, but finally we will put money into our Farmers Hardship Fund. Councillor Rose told Council before that Labour won the farming vote at the last election, which was disputed. Whether they will this time, we will see. How will we do this? Well, we will cut senior management, we will delete posting governance. We do not believe that we should have a one-off election year newspaper. I mean, shock horror on that. We believe the mayor should fund economic development rather than the council. And we believe we should have the same deal, Councillor Coles, on policing and CCTV as the people of Harrogate do. And obviously, if you're going to lobby for York, hopefully you'll be doing that for us. We also would like to reduce the comms budget. And finally, in a world of difficult choices and where things will no doubt picture on Lib Dem leaflets, we once again say that if education officers want to remove the cost of crossing patrols where there are already crossings outside of schools, we think that money could be better spent elsewhere. But of course, Labour won't do that, and the Lib Dems won't do that, such is the silliness of politics. And we would also cut the cost of politics, the excessive SRAs that we have. And so, Lord Mayor, our budget takes faceless bureaucrats out of the equation. It puts the focus on the front line. It delivers for people on the roads, on the green bins, improving the state of York. All of this at the same time as delivering the lowest level of council tax increase of any of the groups and enabling more money to stay in people's pockets where we believe it is best. It is not as low as we would like, but we would not start from where we are now. So, Lord Mayor, I have a great pleasure in commending this budget amendment to people. And should I'll finish with one positive, which I should have done at the start. But on the 19th of January, I emailed Councillor Avilius and I asked, could we possibly have some form of cycle parking within the village? And I emailed at 1:31 p.m. Councillor Avilius replied at 6:14 p.m. to say the budget would feature a community cycle parking fund. Whether that was this administration listening, whether it was a coincidence, I don't know, but we will take the positive of that one item. So, Lord Mayor, I commend this budget amendment to all members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. May I have a seconder for the amendment?
I second, reserve the right.
Thank you, Councillor Nichols. I now invite debate on the amendment. And again, if you can raise your hand, once we've acknowledged it to you, we can then give you a list of who's going to be speaking. Yeah. Okay, so there are 4 hands that we've seen. So in this order to speak, Councillor Hook, Councillor Lomas, Councillor Rose and Councillor Webb. Do I have any other members that wish?
Councillor Waters.
Councillor Waters. And Councillor Waters, if you could at some point repeat your line about the pantomime so that I can say, oh, no, it isn't.
Oh, yes, it is.
Councillor Hook.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I want to speak against the Conservative amendments because it is a textbook example of getting priorities completely wrong. This amendment does nothing to reverse the savage cuts to our libraries. It cuts CCTV, undermining community safety. It cuts school crossing patrol guards, putting children at risk. It fails to reinstate dial and ride, leaving older and disabled residents more isolated. and it reduces the number of people keeping York clean at a time when residents are already fed up with litter and grime. And what is all this damage for? To reduce council tax from 4.99% increase to 4.97% increase. That is the very definition of performative politics. The difference to a Band D household is 43 pennies. So that means if 6 households got together, they might just about be able to afford the price of a coffee in the Poppleton Social. But the consequences for residents with all these cuts would be severe. Libraries are vital community spaces that deserve to be protected. CCTV is important for tackling community safety issues. Savagely axing local crossing patrol guards is heartless. Dial and Ride needs a replacement to help York's most vulnerable get around York. And keeping York clean is a basic expectation of residents. This amendment asks us to trade all of that away for a headline figure that barely changes the council tax bill, but would worsen services. That is not a serious budget proposal. At a time when residents are already feeling like they're having to pay more in council tax for fewer services, the last thing this council should be doing is stripping back even more essential services so the Tories can claim they shaved 0.02% off a council tax rise. For those reasons, we'll be voting against this amendment.
Councillor Lomas.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Unlike Councillor Stewart, I'll refrain from making comments about people's clothing in my speech. I think that's unnecessary and he does seem strangely obsessed. We in the Labour group take our responsibility seriously. And while a quip and an aside can help us to survive the speeches we often have to endure in this chamber, Councillor Stewart makes a mockery of this council and a mockery of the people we serve by his poor attempt at comedy. However, earlier this evening, during Councillor Stewart's speech against the Liberal Democrat amendment, I almost found myself agreeing with his position that their amendment was short-termist. But then he suggested that his group's amendment was not so. Indeed, that it was sensible. But is it? Or does it merely find other ways to be short-termist? Spending almost £2 million giving free garden waste collections to around half the city as a short-term plug to win votes is just a different kind of short-termism, ignoring the need for investment long-term in all of our communities and ignoring the need for support for those who need it most. Doing things like removing paper-based communications means that those who are digitally excluded miss out on communications from their council. Slashing posts from the officer corps will mean reduced capacity to deliver the long-term transformation that this council needs, especially removing a post from our minuscule equalities team, which achieves lots with a very, very small investment. And finally, removing community caretakers removes a service that residents really value, as Councillor Nelson mentioned earlier. A service that makes a real difference to their streets, to the public realm around them, and the space that they call their home. A service that helps to reinstate and support the pride they have in their communities. A free green waste removal for those able to access that service is a poor substitute for all of these things, and it seeks to win short-term support and perhaps a press headline or two. We will not support embedding inequity, and so we will not support this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Lomas. Councillor Rose.
In January 2025, in the press, Councillor Chris Stewart gave a criticism of last year's Labour budget. Quote, once again, the budget is very much a one-year budget. We need a long-term vision from the council about what it should be doing and how best to achieve it. The long-term vision in Labour's budget is investing in adult social care and fleet replacement and necessary IT to reduce our operational costs in future years. Labour's one-off spend is for reasonable things like a genuinely one-off assessment of walkway safety, one-off investment in cycle hoops and small grants. In comparison, is the Conservative amendment a one-year budget or a long-term vision? By my own maths, it looks like you have over £2 million of one-off spend in your budget, a net difference of £1.93 million. I'm not saying those amendments are 100% awful, but it does seem directly at odds with your position last year, seemingly trying to win back the farmer vote as well. And Chris said earlier tonight that he doesn't want to, quote, pointlessly prolong proceedings before either of their two amendments. It reminds me of a different quote from our local Conservative Party leader from the Budget Council meeting last year, already echoed this evening, probably the most pointless pantomime of the civic year. Sadly, whether they still see it as a pantomime or not, the Conservatives are just using their amendment for headlines and leaflets rather than long-term financial security. But maybe it's unfair to quote from a year ago, so here's yesterday in the press. Conservative leader Councillor Stewart said that the cut in proposed hikes to council tax showed their intent and said that, quote, council tax is one of the most regressive taxes of all, and we would rather money be in residents' pockets. And I fully agree council tax is regressive. So let's see how the Conservative amendment would fix that. For those of us below Band D, it's below 40 pence per year. So not only welcome back to popular councillor Anna Perrott, but welcome back to popular budget council character Fredo, who is now 45 pence. And thank you, Chris, for offering me 1/17 of a Fredo per month. Last year you said, quote, it will soon add up. And yes, after at least 17 months, it would add up to a Fredo. If I wanted to save it for one McFlurry, it would take me 10 years and 3 months. As an aside, this short-termism and hypocrisy isn't just Conservative. The Lib Dems' own website led their comments on the budget this year by attacking Labour for the council tax increase that they have kept in their own proposed budget, and tonight have major criticisms of this budget without seeking to amend those aspects of the budget, and dislike the, quote, one-off gimmicks, despite including almost £1 million of extra one-off spend that includes everything good that they named in their speeches. By the way, also claims that voters agree with their position based on what they see around them a few weeks after they came fourth in a local election. Both opposition parties have proposed big, shiny, one-year only options so that they can put it in leaflets and seek headlines. We aren't voting on individual line items, and in totality, this amendment would be bad for our city's financial security. Comparatively, Labour is still pushing ahead with investing for long-term stability, which is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rose. Councillor Webb.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and shock horror here, but I'm actually going to have to correct Councillor Rose. I know it's not about Fredo maths. The Conservatives didn't come fourth in the by-election. The Lib Dems came fourth in the by-election. The Conservatives came fifth. And the quote from the evening was from Councillor Stewart, "I'm not sure we're going to win this one." I thought it was quite good. So I just want to speak on just one aspect of the cuts that the Conservatives are proposing. And that's around the filmmaking in schools project. This has been this is, for me, it's quite interesting about political choices. This project is a really interesting project, which does provide opportunities for children who would not really have those opportunities to access film production kits, editing software, industries which are here in York, in this city. It is predominantly what this filmmaking project involves is industry leaders in this city linking in with state school children. It is really a positive piece of work. And this is something that the Liberal Democrats, sorry, the other ones, Conservatives, are absolutely against. This is a real clear political choice, because what we're saying is that it is a de-investment in our future. So I really do think that this is something that long-term we want to make financially sustainable. We would like to put it as more than one-off, but we can't start doing that if the Conservatives straight away are cutting it. So it is a clear political choice as to whether you wish to invest in this future of our city, whether you want to support and promote talent, or you want to cut it off before it's even having a chance to flourish. So please don't support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Webb. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Gratifying again to see that it's sinking in with Councillor Rose, referring to what I said last year, and I say every year, it's a pointless pantomime.
Oh, no, it's not.
Yeah. Now, I think anybody daft enough not to be watching York Rugby tonight and watching this on the webcast can decide for themselves that it's a pointless pantomime. But leaving that aside, there's one item in the amendment, Conservative amendment, I'd just like some clarification on. It says here, delete post in democratic governance, and a couple of lines further down, reduction in chief officer roles and capacity. Well, we've recently seen 2 new deputy monitoring officers appointed who seem to be very competent, very keen and able. I wouldn't like to see their posts deleted. Now, whether you'd give them consideration to whether it should be higher up in governance where the post was deleted, I don't know. Just going on to what you've said here about funding highway maintenance, and similar to the last Lib Dem amendment, you've got £1 million here. I think it just needs to be made clear to anybody that is watching, for the York public, it's a complete and utter drop in the ocean. The highway asset deteriorates at an accepted rate of 10% a year. It needs £10 million of investment every year just to stand still. You can't hide it from the York public any longer that the highways of this city are in complete and utter collapse. And that's been brought about through decades of underfunding of highways. I pity the post staff, I really do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. Councillor Douglas, would you like the right to reply?
No, let's just move to the vote, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll now take a vote on the amendment. So those wishing to vote for the amendment, please raise your hands now.
We'll go for it as well. 3 in favour.
Okay. Those wishing to vote against the amendment, please raise your hands now.
Against.
And any abstentions, please show. So that's 42 against, 3 for, 1 abstention. Therefore, the amendment is lost. I'm going to move on to the second Conservative amendment and invite Councillor Nichols to move the second of the 2 Conservative group amendments as set out in the papers. And you have 3 minutes, Councillor Nichols.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. That should be twice as long as I need. Our amendment is the kind-hearted Conservatives group looking to help the Labour administration. As we know, they must be disappointed with the support they receive from their own party. It can be easy dealing with the chaos of their own government's making. I'd like to take us back to the heady days of May 23 when some of us were newly elected and Labour swept to power, replacing the Green Lib Dem mismanagement. And it quickly hit home the reality they were dealing with. But no worries, they can blame the Conservative government for any failings. And when the Mayor, which surely would be Conservatives in place, they can put the blame on them, the list too. And their budget on their mate, sorry, on that Mayor spending their budget on their mates in North Yorkshire, not supporting America. Then came 2024 and the hotel, and Labour wins again, not helpful for blame. I'm sure the investment in the Mayor's own office will soon come to the delivery of services here too. And then to the general election, we on this side know what unpopular looks like. Labour win again. So now York has Labour Council, Mayor, MPs and government. Utopia. They can deliver everything. So here we are in 2026 with a government fairer funding review for local government. Except fairer funding for York means we get less. Labour's formula tells us we're well off in York and we need less funding. Now I know from working with Councillor Villiers and Councillor Webb, for example, how hard you are working in these difficult times. Surely it cannot be true we need less. I look forward to hearing why we do need less. Sadly, those Labour politicians who should be supporting you are too busy defending their poor judgment and trying to stay on as leader or trying to replace them. As we hear from Starmer, it's always someone else's fault. But unfortunately for this council, it's all down to Labour. They're responsible for the inflation rising and the growth stalling. And as we all hear for the people of York, our motion gives us all the opportunity to back less political support, less political roles to pay for less potholes. £128,000 saving helps pay for a pothole machine for years and years and years to come. Long-term investment. Who cannot vote for less politics and less potholes? And if this sensible motion is passed, we on our side are happy to speak with the leaders of North Yorkshire, East Yorkshire, North Lincolnshire to see if we can secure a 4-for-3 deal with JCB for the most effective pothole filling machine going. I recommend this motion to the council.
Thank you, Councillor Nichols. Can I have a seconder, please?
Formally second, reserve the right, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. I now invite debate on the amendment. So please, if you would like to speak, raise your hand so that we can take a note.
Thank you.
So I have two people that have indicated to speak, Councillor Waters and Councillor Avilius. Councillor Waters, thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. One thing really stands out in this amendment, and that is delete political assistance posts. That should have happened years ago. If the political parties want political assistance, let the political parties fund them, not York Council taxpayers. Indeed, how many York Council taxpayers actually know that they fund these non-productive posts? Very few, I would have thought. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. Councillor Avilius.
Thank you. I appreciate that some of the roads in Councillor Nichols' ward and in wards across York have so many potholes that they look more like the surface of the moon than a road. But whilst filling extra potholes and buying a pothole machine would be a crowd pleaser, it isn't good value for money. The stark truth is that this city needs £90 million one-off spend to bring its roads up to a reasonable condition and sustained investment thereafter. Much as we'd like to fix our roads all in one go, neither we nor the Lib Dems or the Conservatives can magic up 90 million. And it is this budget when the cold, hard financial reality hits. Multiply this challenge by every local authority across the country and you get the scale of the challenge that any government faces to get on with fixing our roads. This year, we're investing over 12 million in our highways, more than ever before, but still not nearly enough to fill the gap. One aspect that I'll agree with Councillor Waters on is that we're in this position due to decades of underfunding of highway maintenance from a succession of Lib Dem and Conservative governments. This Labour government recognises this and has boosted investments in highway maintenance, which we're really grateful for. Together with the 7.5 million that our administration has dedicated to highway repairs this year, we're reversing the trend of declining highways that we inherited from previous administrations, and we're gradually starting to deliver the long-term improvements of our roads, cycleways and pavements. Our teams are doing a fantastic job under a massively challenging condition. This amendment would add a drop in the ocean and to prioritise reactive pothole filling and resurfacing at the expense of preventative maintenance. Our approach prioritises large patch repairs and preventative treatments such as surface dressing, which maintains the highway for significantly longer and reduces future spend as much as fivefold. I understand and sympathise with the motivation behind this amendment, but believe it's misguided and wouldn't improve the state of our roads, so I can't support the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Avilius. I don't see any other hands wanting to speak. So, Councillor Douglas, would you like the right to reply?
And move to the vote, please, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. So now take a vote on the amendment. All those wishing to vote for the amendment, please raise your hands. Okay, all those wishing to vote against the amendment, please. And any abstentions, please show. Okay, so that is 3 votes for, 42 votes against, 1 abstention. Therefore, the amendment is lost. So the motion now before council, as it's set out in the Budget Council papers for this meeting. I now invite debate on the motion as is in the papers. So if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. Again, we will take a note. So, yeah, just keep your hands up, members, please. Sorry, we just need to. Right, so I've got one. So I've got one at the moment. So start off. Who have you got? I've got Healy. He was the first time that. So okay. Sorry, members, there are a lot of you that want to speak and we want to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity. So please just bear with us. Okay, so as we currently have it, and if you do want to speak and we haven't taken a note of your name, please just pop your hand up. So we'll start in this particular order. So Councillors Healy, Pavlovic, Waters, Webb, Taylor, Eyre, Lomas, Kilbane. Appreciate there may be others, but do let us know as we go through the debate. So I begin by asking Councillor Healy, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It is deeply disappointing that Labour voted down our amendment, especially as this is the last budget before Labour's government so-called fair funding formula really hits York. York is expected to lose more than £38 million when fair funding is fully implemented. Year after year, this council will be staring down a £10 million budget gap, assuming adults and children's social services reduces its growth from next year's 12 million to 1.7 million in 27-28. Take these unavoidable pressures out of the equation, and in the best case, what's left means that £1 in every 6 from all remaining services would need to be cut in next year's budget. This is library closures, leisure centres under threat, 3 weekly bin collections, and a hollowed out frontline street cleaning teams and more. The only solution provided by your Labour government to councils in our position is to add a £150 surcharge per year in addition to any annual 4.99% rise to close a notional council tax requirement. But given that the Labour council leader promised voters at the last election that York needs a Labour won council to freeze your council tax, I'm sure they wouldn't want to make such a mockery of their own words. Turning now to capital spending, we've seen the consequences of Labour's mismanagement in full view. The external audit report into Station Gateway did not mince its words. It found significant weaknesses in project management, uncosted mid-project design changes, reporting delays over 2 years in the potential overspend, resulting in a significant risk to current and future projects. The result, a £28 million overspend, more than double the cost of an original scheme that was originally entirely funded by the West Yorkshire Transport Fund. Now, vital road schemes like the York Outer Ring Road are being gutted to plug the hole left by this project's overspend. The city simply cannot afford for this to continue. I would strongly urge Labour to think very carefully before embarking on any future major projects so that the project pipeline matches officers' capacity to deliver without relying on expensive external consultants. We cannot support a budget that fails to deliver on residents' priorities, that continues to cut libraries, refuses to restore a dial and ride, and still does not give residents real power to shape their own communities. Thank you.
Bang on 3 minutes, Councillor Lilly. Anybody would think you've done this before. Councillor Pavlovic.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Although we've heard about the challenging environment in which the council has to operate overall, this budget still achieves real proposals that will make huge improvements to the city and our residents, not least those contained within the housing revenue account. The past year has been one in which we have seen the introduction of AWAB's law and the need to prioritise damp and mould. We've faced staff shortages in our building services and maintenance teams, but throughout, those teams and our managers have been relentless in delivering a quality service for our residents, and I'm so proud of each and every one of them. For the first time, we will ring-fence £1 million to be spent on improving the communal areas of our council stock, which were allowed to become shamefully neglected under the watch of the previous Lib Dem, Conservative and Green administrations. We are also going to scale up the retrofitting and energy efficiency of the 39% of our stock, which is at EPCD or below, with an additional £1 million of investment. And to allow more people to remain in their own homes and to leave hospital, thereby freeing up beds, an additional £500,000 to make the overall budget for the AIDS and Adaptation Service 1.15 million. This reflects how this administration is taking a council-wide approach to addressing the need for effective social care. Never has over 14.7 million been invested by this council into its housing stock. 1.5 million on reducing voids and 2.8 million on tackling damp and mould, which we know is a serious health issue, particularly on some of our non-traditional and pre-1945 homes, which at 32% are double the percentage nationally. These are impressive, mainly unprecedented levels of investment, but let's look at what we're actually planning to deliver. 229 new kitchens, 236 new bathrooms, 477 new doors, 50 roof repairs, and 141 new energy efficiency boilers. We're an administration who, despite a challenging financial environment, has never wavered from our core purpose to improve the lives and well-being of the citizens of York, whether that be commitment to our care leavers to have their own home, those fleeing domestic abuse or with vulnerabilities, including a comprehensive training programme for all housing management staff on dementia and neurodiversity, or embedding the social model of disability with training, and a joint approach with both adult and children's social care regarding complex needs, a new strategy for homelessness and rough sleeping, and the imminent rollout of the neighbourhood model. We want each and every one of our current or future tenants to know that we will do everything we can, each and every day, to give you the best service we possibly can. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So once again, we get that phrase, financially challenging environment. Very surprising phrase for a Labour council when we've got a Labour government, 2 Labour MPs and a Labour mayor. Wouldn't have been so long ago, it would have been Tory austerity, heartless Tory government. So where's the money going? We've now got our unfair funding review that I recall reading was going to cost £20 million to this council in 3 years. And Councillor Ely has just seemingly updated that as a £38 million cost. So what are you presenting to the public of York? taxes up, services down, and infrastructure not so much deteriorating as collapsing. So where is the money? Where is the money that should be going to all local authorities? Why are local authorities running on fumes, some of them going bust? Well, just to put it in a bit of context, local context, this government, through the Home Office, can find over £18 million a year to be paying for people in a hotel that shouldn't even be in this country. And that is repeated up and down the UK. There's no shortage of money. There's a shortage of will to spend it on the UK taxpayers. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. Councillor Webb.
Just a brief point of order, Lord Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Crawshaw.
The allegation is that asylum seekers should not be in this country. That is factually inaccurate, and I think we need to make clear that there are legal routes for people to seek asylum. We have a legal duty as a country to accept asylum seekers and to assess their claims, and it is very, very, very unfortunate that Councillor Waters chooses to misrepresent that situation.
Note taken. Councillor Webb.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So I just want to talk a little bit about the investment that we are making in children's services. There has been national support for the children's budget. There's also, as I said at the recent executive meeting, there is a lot of demand and a lot of expectation from national government and indeed from ourselves on what we should be doing to protect our most vulnerable and supporting our children to thrive. Recent plans around producing a best start in life plan, for example, to support our youngest to make a good level of development. These things cost money, and I'm really glad that we've been able to invest in our services, and also that we have received £692,000 from the government in order to make further investments. And it's quite timely, really, because, of course, in York over the last few years, we have really transformed children's services. It wouldn't be a meeting if I didn't mention the fact that we've gone from requires improvement under the Liberal Democrats and Green Party to outstanding in all areas. And I'm dead chuffed about that. Thank you for the small ripple of applause. The reason that we've achieved that is because we've gone further and faster at reforming our children's services than most authorities. And it has done something miraculous. It's not only improved outcomes for children, but it's also cost us less money. And therefore, we're going in the right direction when it comes to children's services, whether that's cost saving, whether that's, because this is a finance meeting, or whether that's actually about early help and intervention and prevention, supporting families when they need it the most. We've put £400,000 of York's money into casework capacity, which again allows social workers and other staff to support our children and families properly. It also, again, helps with early help and preventative services. And that is fantastic. Finally, I just want to mention the Children Wellbeing and Schools Bill. There's a real positive thing in there for children's services across the country, but again, specifically here in York. There is a line in there about using powers to implement profit caps in children's social care placement market. Now, that really does ensure that public money is delivering value and care, and it's not profiteering. It's not going into private pockets outside of this city. So that is a real positive change that we're seeing from Labour locally and nationally, and we shouldn't shy away from that. That is a big positive, and it will help our budget, but more importantly, it's the right thing to do for children and families in this city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Webb. So, dear members, I have all but one of the top table wanting to speak, and I will give them the opportunity to speak, but I'm just aware that we may have missed. So I'm just going to give you the list of those that I'm going to call to speak in a moment. But if there are anybody in the main chamber who hasn't said anything and wants to speak, so from the main chamber, I've got Councillor Taylor, Councillor Eyre, I don't have anybody else. So if there are any members, please indicate that you would like to speak on this debate. Okay. Councillor Stewart, thank you very much. Yep. Councillor Taylor, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Don't get too excited. I wasn't going to speak tonight. This is actually, I think, my ninth budget that I've sat through, and I've seen this sort of exercise from a mix of perspectives, and I thought I'd make a representation with that in mind. I will vote for the Labour budget, of course I will. I think we do right to prioritise people over places, and that is a clear dividing line in York that I think we should be proud of. But I think we also need to keep in mind the managed decline that we're working in. And frankly, there's no legal alternative. We have to pass a balanced budget. Local councils across the nation are completely screwed, and we need to start being more honest about that. This is the basis of my speech. Councillor Waters, it's quite funny, really. You focused on the use of the word challenging, and that's exactly what I was going to do, but in a very different way to yourself. We have some overlap, but not universally. So looking at different parties, the Lib Dem amendment, it's hard to know of the Lib Dems what you're going to get. I don't think there's a clear narrative. It's something different every year. It's something different in every different part of the country, depending on what the weather is doing, whichever way the wind's blowing. The Tories, you know, as much as I get on with colleagues in this party on a personal basis, I would say I find it staggering how council tax increases can be frowned upon and called out, knowing full well that even maximum council tax increases still mean a shed load of cuts, not savings, cuts. So let's start saying to residents, if we don't have maximum increases, we'll have even more cuts. And this is the mess we're in. Now, as for the Labour Party, I think it was one of the colleagues over here mentioned how hard certain officers and exec members are working, and I absolutely second that. I don't envy any executive member. I feel sorry for officers in scrutiny when they have to face the reality of how stretched their services are versus the corporate comms. But what I want to start seeing from Labour, and I've raised this internally, is I want us to start using firmer language. It's not just challenging. I've heard the word challenging so many times tonight. I think that's insulting to the state of the city and the nation. We've got to start saying the funding of councils is an absolute mess. It's socially destructive, and it's pitting much needed services against each other. If the only interests of careful language are the Labour governments, then I'm sorry, but that careful language is not worth sticking with. We owe it to the residents and citizens of York to start calling a spade a spade. We've got my vote tonight, but come on, guys. We need to start calling out this situation. It's the only way the Labour government is going to bend to some public, real pressure, not letters or nicely worded emails. It's the only thing that's going to change if the government start feeling the heat. So I congratulate you on prioritising people over place. I really, really do. But come on, we all know the score. I know I'm not alone in saying this. We've got 1 year, maybe more, to the next election in York. Let's start stepping up and getting real about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Quickly to start with, in response to Councillor Webb, don't take that percentage as acquiescing to the rest of the budget. It's not true. And also your figures, or sorry, Councillor Rose's figures are wrong. You added 30 million of off-budget expenditure to this. So actually, if you work out the percentages, your previous ones, including that, would have been much, much smaller. Equally, 18 days to unpick this budget, 18 days. In response to Councillor Steels-Warshaw's comments, our suggestions didn't come out of nowhere. They came from your government cuts, £400,000, which this budget says, fine, we don't want it. We would have put that back to those people that need it during the school holidays, but you seem happy to take those Labour cuts and thank the government for it. You don't seem to have a grasp on what public health budget and ring fencing means. That is worrying. If you look at the public health outcome frameworks, P1 to 19, all of what we've proposed is public health outcomes and what people want. On green bins, again, did you really think we could unpick green bins in 18 days? But what I find stranger is your suggestion that you just do nothing, but actually getting maybe 5 or 6% more people to be able to do that would be something of an achievement. But no, don't put anything into helping anybody who can't afford a green bin. In terms of the capital support, again, we do not support the capital project as is, just because we have not amended it. The vast majority of it was ours, and that's being delivered is our capital budget. Elsewhere, where you've interjected and stepped in, it has gone horribly wrong. I know Councillor Kilbane was very proud of the Station Gateway contract when he issued his press release. The unpicking that happened after that is what led to a lot of those issues. I often think of George Orwell when I listen to this administration. It's normally 1984. But in this case, I think what I was listening to was 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, 2 legs good, 4 legs bad. In this time, 1 off bad, 1 off good. You put a load of one-off spending in, which apparently is absolutely fine if proposed by Labour, but for everyone else, it's irresponsible. The truth is, the budget ignores the medium-term financial strategy. It takes no steps. You were lucky you got 5 million for 3 years to offset that. That could potentially be a significant risk if the pension fund re-evaluation in 2 years' time after this budget pushes that up. We could be facing a 7 and 8, 9, 10 million pound gap on top of what you've suggested here today. The library charade continues. That should have gone. We always accuse you of delivering less for more. What this budget is about is a promise of next to nothing for the next 2.5 years. Executive, you said, and I'm fully with Councillor Taylor on this, you said, we will not stand for this. They were clear words. We will not stand for this financial settlement. Well, you have stood for it. It was voted through, and we got even less. That seems to be what your contribution has done to the city.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Councillor Lomas.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I want to say something about the Fair Funding Review and the impact that it's had. Firstly, on the process of setting our budget for this year, and then on our finances in the medium term. So changing the way that finance is allocated took time, and government rightly took time to do that. And we did not even get our consultation settlement figure until the week before Christmas. And indeed, the final figure did not arrive until Monday this week. And so I commend everybody who has worked so hard in such a tight timeline to pull together a budget. And I want to also commend the Budget Scrutiny Task and Finish group that was put together, chaired ably by Councillor Baxter, and contributed to cross-party by councillors, including Councillor Eyre. Every single one of the cross-party recommendations were accepted enthusiastically. And Councillor Eyre is quite wrong to imply that we are reluctant to begin the process of setting next year's budget early in the timeline. We will, however, allow officers a little bit of time off over half term to recover from the intensive work that they had to do preparing a budget in an extremely difficult timeline between the week before Christmas and today. We are not afraid of working cross-party, unlike the Liberal Democrats, who seek to blame this administration for their own failures in setting up major projects like the station frontage, rather than working with us as we mop up their messes. We take a responsible approach, looking at the scheduling of major projects, despite Councillor Eyre's protestations at every single Capital Monitor report, and pulling back from multi-storey car park follies to create spaces for people to enjoy rather than for vehicle storage. The pie of local government funding is being shared out to ensure that it delivers where it's most needed. The problem we face is that pie is not big enough. And why isn't it big enough? It's not big enough because of the trashing of our economy. It's not big enough because of decades of underfunding that need fixing by our government. Despite the pie not being big enough, and despite us having the smallest slice of pie in the country, we have worked hard and we have listened to residents. And we have focused not on one-off gimmicks, not on buying votes, but on genuine transformation of the organisation, eliminating waste, eliminating duplication, making the organisation work more efficiently. It is important to note that some of our financial difficulties come from over a decade of underfunding. Some from the wider challenges facing the UK, and some from a lower than average council tax that means that we lose out as the formula assumes we charge the same as everyone else and deducts funding accordingly. Nevertheless, our commitment to a sensible financial management and not being afraid to make difficult decisions, even when we face criticism for them, means that we are setting a budget that does not cut frontline services, that we know that residents want and need, and gives additional investment where residents tell us they want it, like combating digital exclusion.
Councillor Lomas.
Councillor Eyre accuses us of disrespecting delivery partners, yet his amendment was built on raiding the reserves of Make It York and City of York Trading with no consultation with them, despite being in a meeting with them discussing their need for reserves just last week.
Thank you. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just want to make one correction to Councillor Eyre's suggestion that we had made no consideration at all for those on lower incomes with charging for a green waste service. From the very start, there's a 50% reduction for those on council tax support. We were very clear at the beginning, and that continues. There's no change in that. I'm also delighted to say that this is the second year running that this administration has increased the number of frontline staff in environmental services, because we do care about what people say on the streets and we do care about where they live. This is on top of the Parks Investment Fund, which is improving our local parks and green spaces. Projects that are already starting, and that was allocated on need and age of infrastructure. It's delighting me to be to reflect that there's some, if imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, that the Conservatives have taken that one and run by throwing in an extra, or the equivalent of an extra swing set, one each for York Central and York Outer. But we've, from various sources, managed to collect almost £1 million to make meaningful differences, to make our green spaces and our places where our people go beautiful, fun and welcoming for all. This budget brings an extra 90,000 additional investment in our caretaker team. It'll expand the great work they're doing, cleaning up our streets, bringing pride to our communities and pride to our cities. And we're also taking weed management seriously, something that previous administrations have failed to do. We're putting the additional funding necessary to bring the service back in-house rather than contracting out for low cost. This is going to enable us to do the heavy lifting and actually tailor a bespoke service which dovetails with our public realm services so they can complement each other rather than one clearing up after the other. I'm really proud of all we're doing, all our frontline staff are doing, and it's an increased number of frontline staff. So talking about cuts and difficult challenges is false in this evening's discussions. They're doing fantastic work. Our local people are seeing it, and that's on top of the amazing things we're doing in housing for children and for the whole city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Steels-Walsham.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So I'm really proud of the additional over 10 million we're allocating to adult social care, and this represents a significant and welcome commitment. Adult social care in York is under pressures that we've never experienced at this scale, and demand is rising rapidly, and the level of need is becoming more and more complex year on year. National policy expectations, demographic shifts, and more people living longer with multiple overlapping health conditions all contribute to this. These are not theoretical trends. They shape the daily reality for staff and for residents who rely on support. At the same time, the cost of delivering adult social care continues to increase faster than general inflation. Residential care, supported living, specialist services have all seen steep price rises. Workforce costs have increased substantially, and the contributions made by individuals do not keep pace with the overall increases in expenditure. In effect, maintaining the same level of services requires more funding every year. Adult social care has been tasked with operating within its budget, avoiding further overspend and delivering both its improvement plan and its saving plan. This investment is about stabilising so it can meet its statutory responsibilities and deliver the improvements that residents rightly expect. York's population is ageing. diagnoses of neurodiversity are increasing and mental health conditions continue to rise. The most significant pressures are in residential care and learning disability services, where complexity and costs are escalating. Adult social care cannot decline support. It is a statutory duty. Many people choose to make York their home, including in retirement, and as their needs grow, we must respond. The recent CQC inspection confirms that we're moving in the right direction, but it also highlights that further progress is needed. This funding enables us to continue this journey. However, it's not solely about additional funding, it's about using resources more effectively. We are achieving improvements through stronger contract management, improved commissioning, and a clear focus on value for money. We also know that early intervention and prevention are the most effective ways to reduce long-term demand. When people receive support earlier, stay connected to their communities and maintain independence for longer, outcomes improve and costs reduce. This investment is strategic, it provides stability, supports essential improvements and ensures we meet our legal duties. It recognises that rising demand and increasing complexity require higher spending simply to maintain safe and lawful services, and it positions us to a shift firmly towards prevention, creating a sustainable system where cost falls because we have invested wisely. This is not optional, this is responsible, it is necessary and the right choice for people in York.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart-Walsham. Councillor Stewart and then finally Councillor Kilbane. Councillor Stewart.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I just wanted to sort of come back to where we were earlier in terms of the amount of disagreement about the budget. And we have this vast amount and a tiny amount of it gets amended. And that doesn't actually mean that we agree with everything. But the fundamentals are that we do have this vast amount of money. And I would say there are councillors on all parties, whoever is in the ruling administration, who genuinely care passionately about a lot of these things. And I think that's where we're going wrong as a council, that we have a majority of one or a majority of two, and that party is the be all and end all. Opposition councillors effectively don't matter at all. And that's the way it seems to always be and always will. I think we've got to get away from that. Now, on the actual budget itself, we've heard about the great fantastic budget task group that was set up. And I don't doubt that. I'm sure Councillor Baxter did chair it very well. And I genuinely think the whole way it was presented as a report with the colours, I thought it made it look a lot more tangible and good. But look at the 7 recommendations that came out with. 1, that the committee meets again. 2, that it reviews budget monitoring when that committee wasn't given access to the budget. 3, the budget process starts earlier. Was that 5 minutes? Is that 6 weeks? 4, that 2 committees form another committee to look at something. I mean, how unexciting. 5, we review member training, which is happening anyway. 6, we develop communications with stakeholders. Could mean absolutely anything that is clearly ongoing. And 7, that progress against the recommendations be monitored. It's Empress New Clothes. It's peak yes minister. There's absolutely nothing whatsoever there. And then if you look at the speech we've heard tonight from Councillor Pavlovic, from Councillor Webb, and then from Councillor Steels-Walshaw, they're setting out really tangible stuff that is in there, that it is approved, and that I'm sure members would love to get involved with. But when you look, for example, at what Councillor Pavlovic has said about houses that will be improved, when you're specifying the number of bathrooms at this stage that will be redone, it's great they will be redone, but it shows how much of a fait accompli it is that we've actually got that detail already set there. So on the whole city ward funding that Councillor Pavlovic, Councillor and I sat on, we had a thing where there was a bid for funding for carpets, and we all discussed it, and we said, well, what's the situation about carpets? Because obviously people would rather have carpets. It's a lot more homely, but you know, if you have sort of a harder surface, it's better. But then what do we do? Do we have the carpet, but then do we have to take it out every time? You know, these are real time, and we don't. I don't think we know the policy now, having asked questions about it. I don't think probably anybody here, might be wrong, knows the policy about how we carpet or don't carpet our houses. And these are the sort of real things. And I'm sure some sort of executive member, from what she said, does in that sort of thing. But we should know, and we should be able to take an interest in these genuine things. And I would say, if you look at what the 3 executive members that I've highlighted said, there are a lot of things in there that we genuinely can have put to scrutiny before the budget to say, this is what we're thinking of, and get a greater input, rather than have, this is the 99% that nobody can really meaningfully look at, because we can't delve in. We can't have 3-hour meetings with officers say, when Councillor Pavlik's doing this, what does that actually mean? But to genuinely have a bit of cross-party involvement, so that hopefully opposition councillors can make a bit of a tangible difference in some ways. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. Finally, Councillor Kilbane, please, before I move to the Leader of the Council. Councillor Kilbane.
So did we have another councillor wanted to speak?
Sorry, is that a point of order, Councillor Baxter?
I'll make it one. The Conservatives have been invited to join the Task and Finish group, and the latest that I heard was that they declined to send any members on that. So I'm just going to put it on the record here that they're more than welcome to join the Task and Finish group, which I'm sure all the other councillors found genuinely interesting and a productive group. So just re-extending that invitation to you, Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. Councillor Kilbane.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I am honoured to second move our budget here tonight. I would like to start by thanking everybody for their contributions to the process, the residents, the stakeholders, all members and officers who had to work to extremely tight deadlines, maybe not quite as tight as Councillor Eyre was suggesting, but extremely tight deadlines to formulate the budgets. So thanks to all of them, and actually thanks to everybody in the room tonight for the debate and for the tone of the debate and for the issues that have been raised. I think it's been a very healthy debate tonight. Even Councillor Eyre's barbs were slightly less barbed than sometimes they normally are. I didn't fully understand all of the speeches. My mind's still boggling about carpets and bathrooms or whatever that was about. And I got a bit lost in your maths, Councillor Eyre. But nonetheless, I think we all know that we are on a ship that has been sailing through very choppy waters for a very long time. And while we're all the crew on that ship, and some of the crew on that ship are not happy about the direction that it's taken, none of the current crew members are trying to sink it. And believe me, there will be people trying to get on this ship a year in May whose intention will be to sink it. Brings me on to Councillor Waters' points. I disagree with you, Councillor Waters, that this is a pantomime, because I think what we have seen here tonight are very different political choices, very different directions that different parties would like to take. And obviously residents will be able to make their choices based upon that when it comes to the election a year in May. I'm very proud, as Councillor Taylor pointed out, we are focusing the scarce resources that we've got in the areas where they are most needed. That's what Labour does. That's what Labour always will do. I also agree with Councillor Taylor and agree with Councillor Waters that the fundamental problem here is that there is not enough money. As Councillor Stewart pointed out, we are talking about such a small amount of the budget that we're arguing over because our discretionary spend is minimal as a local authority, and that is the same for all local authorities across the country. Now, the current Labour government is trying to address that by giving the money to where it's most needed. That has left us as a council in a very difficult place because of our pockets of deprivation are not hitting the right buttons, and we will not settle for that, and we will keep on fighting that. But let's be absolutely clear, local authorities have been in this situation now for what, 40 years, more than 40 years? And the reason for that is the Thatcherite experiment that started in the 80s. It is opening up our economy to extractive capitalism that sucks all the resources away from the people who need it most and gives it to those who need it least. And that's what we need to be saying. That is the reason we are in this situation. The pie is not big enough because those who can make a bigger pie won't give us the resources to do it. And that is the fight that we will take to our government and to the whole of the system that we're operating in, because there simply is not enough money to go around to provide the services that our residents quite rightly expect us to provide. And we need to be straight with them. We need to be honest about that. This is the situation we are in. We are the most productive council in the UK. We're independently assessed as being the most productive council in the UK. We are the cheapest. We're in the bottom 23% when it comes to council tax, and that goes over all administrations. Actually, we all do the best we can, but there's not enough, and we need to take that fight to them.
Thank you, Councillor Kilbane. Councillor Douglas, I invite you to reply.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Alongside Councillor Kilbane, I'd like to thank everybody for constructive debate this evening. There is no doubt this is a really challenging environment, but we will not rest on our laurels. We need to go out there. We need to bring the additional funding into York, and I will not rest until that is achieved. Thank you. I recommend this budget to you, so let's move to the vote.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. So we're now going to take a named vote on the motion, as in the pack. So when your name is called, please indicate whether you are voting for, against, or abstaining. And please do not put your microphone on. If you know where you are in the pecking order and it's on the front of the agenda pack, you'll know roughly a couple of councillors before it comes to you. But please do not put your microphone on too soon and turn it off as soon as the vote's happened. So I'm going to hand over to my colleagues from Democratic Services who will read out the names for the named vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, members. We're starting with Councillor Eyre.
Against.
Councillor Baxter.
For.
Councillor Clark.
For.
Councillor Coles. For. Councillor Crawshaw.
For.
Councillor Colwick.
Against.
Councillor Cuthbertson.
Against.
Councillor Douglas. For. Councillor Fenton.
Against.
Councillor Fisher.
Against.
Councillor Healy.
Against.
Councillor Hollier.
Against.
Councillor Hook.
Against.
Councillor Kent. For. Councillor Kilban.
For.
Councillor Knight.
Against.
Councillor Lomas.
For.
Councillor Mason.
Against.
Councillor Melly. For. Councillor Merritt.
For.
Councillor Maroney.
For.
Councillor Myers.
For.
Councillor Nelson.
For.
Councillor Nichols.
Against.
Councillor Orrell.
Against.
Councillor Pavlovic.
For.
Councillor Perrott.
For.
Councillor Raffilius. For. Councillor Rose.
For.
Councillor Runciman.
Against.
Councillor Smalley.
Against.
Councillor Steels-Walshaw.
For.
Councillor Stewart.
Against.
Councillor Taylor.
For.
Councillor Waller.
Against.
Councillor Wan.
Against.
Councillor Waters.
Against.
Councillor Watson.
Against.
Councillor Wardby. Against. Councillor Webb.
For.
Councillor Wells.
For.
Councillor Whitcroft.
For.
Councillor Widdowson.
Against.
Councillor Wilson. For. And Councillor Rowley.
Abstain.
Thank you. Yep.
That is 23 for, 21 against, and 1 abstention.
So there are 23 votes for, 21 against, and 1 abstention. The motion is therefore carried. We're now going to take another short break of 10 minutes. So if you can be back, if we can be back at 9:10, please, for the
Point of order, Lord Mayor. There's no real business. Come on.
Sorry, I'm forgive me. I heard 3 different voices there. But I'm going to take. I'll take a 5-minute break because I know there are members who need a comfort break. So we will take a 5-minute break and reconvene at 9:05. 9:05. Thank you, members. And please, if you're in your seats, you'll be part of it. If you're not in your seats, clearly you won't. So item number 9. Well, clearly we can't because the leader of the council is not here. So we can't start. Yeah, could make it 3 groups in a. Thank you, members. Just very quickly, there were a few dissenting voices when I asked for a second break. Please understand, when we have a break, there was a reason for having a break. So even if we only had 1 item left to go, let's be fair to everybody. If we need a break, we need a break. So there will always be 2 breaks whenever I chair this council meeting. We move on to item number 9, which is the council tax resolution for 26-27. I now invite Councillor Douglas to move the council tax resolution for 2026-27 as set out in the pages 59 to 71 of the budget council papers.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to propose the recommendations in the council tax paper. It is for a 4.99% increase, which is the assumption within the budget. So to make the budget balance, that 4.99% council tax increase is needed. And as I said earlier, it brings £127 million into the council, which is the vast proportion of our budget. But it cannot be underestimated how much this does impact on household budgets. I totally understand that. And it is never taken lightly when we make the decision to raise council tax. So I want to say to the residents of York, I do understand how difficult this is. I know your household budgets are stretched at the moment. I know that you value the services that council provides to you, and you do want to maintain those services into our communities. And therefore, I propose that the council tax is raised by 4.99%. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Can I just say that the Leader of the Opposition being locked out of the chamber has nothing to do with anybody in the chamber. It was just the mechanics of the door system.
It was me, Lord Mayor, trying to get away.
Can I have a seconder, please?
Thank you,
Councillor
Lord
Lomas.
Mayor. As I said in my speech earlier, we have a lower than average council tax, and that means that our funding from government is lowered because they assume we can collect the average council tax. And this leaves us with no choice but to apply the 4.99% increase, or risk that gap being widened and our funding position worsen in each of the 2 remaining years of the Fair Funding Review settlement. And as Councillor Douglas says, we do know that an increase in any cost will have an impact. But if we want to continue to provide services to our residents and to our city, we have no option.
Thank you, Councillor Lomas. I'm now going to invite debate on this motion. So would anybody like to speak? No. Okay. Councillor Douglas, you do have a right to reply.
No, there's no need, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to take a named vote again on this recommendation. So again, please, if your name is called, when your name, not if, your name will be called. When your name is called, unless you're locked out of the chamber, obviously. When your name is called, please indicate whether you want to vote for, against, or abstain. And please do remember to turn your microphone off once you cast your vote. I'll hand over to my colleague from Democratic Services to take the named vote.
Okay, thank you, members. Councillor Eyre.
For.
Councillor Baxter.
For.
Councillor Clark.
For.
Councillor Coles. For. Councillor Crawshaw.
For.
Councillor Culwick.
For.
Councillor Cuthbertson,
For.
Councillor Douglas. 4. Councillor Fenton,
4.
Councillor Fisher,
4.
Councillor Healy,
4.
Councillor Hollier,
4.
Councillor Hook,
4.
Councillor Kent, 4. Councillor Kilbane,
4.
Councillor Knight,
4.
Councillor Lomas, 4. Councillor Mason,
4.
Councillor Melly, 4. Councillor Merritt,
4.
Councillor Maroney,
4.
Councillor Myers,
4.
Councillor Nelson, 4. Councillor Nichols,
4.
Councillor Orrell, 4. Councillor Pavlovic, 4. Councillor Perrott, 4. Councillor Rivilius, 4. Councillor Rose,
4.
Councillor Runciman,
4.
Councillor Smalley,
4.
Councillor Steels Walshaw, 4. Councillor Stewart,
4.
Councillor Taylor,
4.
Councillor Waller,
4.
Councillor Wan,
4.
Councillor Waters. Gone. Okay, thank you. Councillor Watson,
4.
Councillor Wardby, 4. Councillor Webb,
4.
Councillor Wells, 4. Councillor Whitcroft,
4.
Councillor Widdowson, 4. Councillor Wilson, 4. Councillor Rowley.
Abstain.
Thank you.
Yeah.
None against, 1 abstention.
So the results 43 for, no against, 1 abstention. The motion is therefore carried. Item number 10, the pay policy statement for 2026-27, and I invite Councillor Douglas to move the motion to approve the pay policy statement for 26-27 as set out in pages 73 to 90 of the Budget Council papers.
Proposed, Lord Mayor, thank you.
You may have a seconder, Councillor Lomas.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. In seconding, I want to mention something positive. At last year's public meeting of the Human Rights and Equalities Board, we focused on pay gaps in our city, and we talked about the reasons why this council has a positive gender pay gap in favour of women against trends in our city and nationally. We talked about the fact that public sector organisations are far more likely to have 0 or positive pay gaps, as these are organisations with unionised workforces, progressive employment policies and a commitment to a proper living wage. I commend the pay policy to council.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lomas. We now invite debate on the motion. Would anybody like to speak? No, no, there are no hands. Okay. Councillor Douglas, you have a right to reply.
Move to the vote, please, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. Now take a vote on the motion. So all those wishing to vote for the recommendations, please raise your hand now.
Unanimous, Lord Mayor.
Okay, that's unanimous, and therefore the motion is carried. Moving on to item number 11, appointments and changes to membership. We now come to item agenda number 11. Do I have council's agreement to note and agree the appointment and changes to membership as set out in pages 91 to 94 of the Budget Council papers? If you can just nod or indicate this. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much. Thank you, members. You'll be pleased to know that we are very close to the end of this evening's meeting. I just would like to say that this evening in the debates, I have been lenient with timing. We are all in this chamber now experienced members of the council, and those of us that write written speeches, we should be able to keep them to 3 minutes. I have been lenient this evening. I will not be as lenient at the next meeting. Please, if you write a speech, you should be able to write it and keep to 3 minutes. At the next meeting, I will give you the 30-second warning and expect the speeches to be done within 3 minutes, just for fairness and just to keep the meeting moving. Thank you so much for your time this evening. There are no urgent items of business, so that concludes this evening's Budget Council meeting. Thank you for your attendance and have a safe journey home. Thank you.
I don't know where you're, oh, there they are. They're behind you.
They're behind me.